What's happening?
What's up, everyone? This is Jason Tucker. This is WPwatercooler. Today's topic, we're going to be recapping WooCamp 2016.
WooConf.
I already messed it up. Awesome. Amazing.
That's not right.
Let's go around the room real quick.
Good
Bob,
start.
Tell us all about yourself. Hey, Bob. Tell us about yourself.
Hey, I'm Bob Dunn. I blog over at BobWP.com. I'm host of Do the Woo podcast, and I'm co-organizer of the Seattle WooCommerce meetup.
Do the woo! Do the woo! Do the woo!
What about you, Chris?
I'm Chris Lema. I blog over at chrislema.com, and I'm currently the CTO of Crowd Favorite, but if you read the post on my blog today, you'll know that that's wrapping up at the end of this week.
What?
Go read!
Yep.
Go read!
Say, drop the mic,
after
drop the
this
mic,
episode.
say.
How about that?
I don't have a mic. Wait, here, hold on.
How about you, Michelle?
Can I just hit it? Does that work? I don't know.
Hey, I'm Michelle, designer, developer, person who goes to a lot of things, which is why I'm here now.
It's our official title.
That
On our
totally
business
is.
card.
It is.
Very cool.
She's
Patrick.
a participator.
It's been a while. How's it going, man?
It's been a little bit since I've been on. Going well. I'm in sunny Austin after our conference. I've done a little bit of everything on the Woo theme. I've done support, I've done development, I've done product management. I help out on the WooConf. Life's pretty good.
I like how you said a conference. Like it wasn't the conference that we're talking from. Just the conference.
Right?
What about you, Russ?
Hey, I'm Russ, and I would tell you something, but I'm busy reading Chris Lema's Making a Change post, so skip me.
How about you, Say?
I think the title of the post may have needed to be a little bit focus grouped in the times that we're in. But other than that, my name is Say Reed. I make WordPress, love WordPress. Stay up way too late. Make WordPress, teach WordPress, love WordPress, preach WordPress, WordPress in your face. At Say Reed Media on all the things. Also, that's it.
Okay. How about you, Steve?
Wow. I am Steve Zankit. I am the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run the OC WordPress meetup. And tonight is the Dev meetup at Crash Labs in Costa Mesa. Scott Bollinger will be speaking, as will I. And or me, or I forget what pronoun do you use there?
It's I will.
As will I be and speaking.
Oh, I think we all need to make a change. All right, I'm Jason Tucker. I'm over at jasontucker.us. I blog over at WPwatercooler.pro. And I also do a show over at WPwatercooler.com/WPblab. We do those on Thursdays. So, let's talk about the Woo a little bit, WooConf. So, quite a few of you spoke or attended, correct?
Yep.
Who spoke?
Mm-hmm.
I spoke.
So Chris spoke. And,
Yep.
No, I did.
Bob spoke. And
Bob's Pro.
awesome. So how did that go? Like how was this compared to like a WordCamp? And kind of give us a little bit of a background here.
Can I start with like the stage, like
Oh my God.
the venue? So I'm glad I work with a team of people that like don't dream small. They dream very big, and it was at what is the venue, ACL? And they host like rock concerts, so like the stage was incredible. It felt very different.
Yeah, it looked
Different than like a
awesome.
WordCamp?
Yeah, it was completely different. Like, there was lights and lasers, and it was like kind of like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon.
It's Dark Side of the Woo.
It's one of those.
Dark Side
One
of
of
the
those
Woo.
things
That would be
where,
rad.
Somebody actually told me, to ease my mind, you'll be where you're standing tomorrow, Bob. Robert Plant was singing a week ago. So,
nice.
Hey,
if you know who Robert Plant is.
I absolutely know who Robert Plant is.
I know who Robert Plant is.
The venue was fantastic. There were multiple screens. They were quite large, so pretty much you could sit anywhere and get not only a great view of the stage, which was an elevated stage, but you could see on the screens, you could see the speakers really clearly. Balcony for all the sponsors, and great seats on the floor for everyone. People who had been or lived in Austin or around Austin have often been to Austin City Limits or ACL for concerts and comedians, and so they were kind of prepared for it. But the speakers who may have never stepped into that venue before, it was a little surprising, right? If you've never spoke on a stage like that, you walk in and you're like, wow, that's a huge stage. There's a bunch of screens, and how do you do this, right? But the team, the technical team that was supporting those speakers, everywhere from the videography to getting your mic clipped on before you went on, were top notch. It was a full production, and it went really well.
I heard next year it's going to be at the Grand Ole Opry.
I have a question about WooCommerce in
Dolly
general.
Parton is opening.
Real question though. So is how so Pressnomics is kind of out of the in the WordCamp ecosphere, but it's a third-party produced thing. It's not officially produced, so it doesn't have the same limitations that WordCamps do. And so is WooConference, except for I'm interested because now that is like automatic, but it's not the same thing as WordCamps or the WordPress Foundation. So was this geared more toward users of WooCommerce or developers in the WooCommerce space, or what was the general take in terms of speakers and offerings?
So I think so here's the thing, you can learn a lot about the basic fundamentals of WooCommerce at a WordCamp. Most WordCamps I go to now already have an introduction to WooCommerce. This is cool, you have your store set up, now let's talk about how to make money. So it's just like a different, like more experienced users, as opposed to people who are brand new and want to learn how to install it, right?
I think the way I describe WooConf to people is that there's three audiences that appear. The first is store owners, people who are running a business, running on top of WooCommerce. The second is developers. These are people who are building sites and wanting to get a little deeper into pieces. And the third is those product developers or product folks who are trying to connect their solutions into the WordPress ecosystem. So whether it's Amazon Pay with Amazon, or it's Stripe, or it's PayPal, or it's a plugin that does something, or a host. So you have a bunch of product players that are there as well. So you get a third, put them together, and you can have some pretty interesting conversations.
Yeah, I think actually the interesting part about it was in that product space, like, most of the sponsors I had never interacted with before, because there was a ton of like payment gateways and all that kind of stuff that you really only think about when you're diving a lot deeper into e-commerce. So that was kind of cool, like a different mix of people I hadn't met before.
Yeah, you get stuff like shipping, tax. You get the real players who are playing in the space, and so let's see, one of the shirt vendors was there too. Scalable Press. Scalable Press lets you create a store and connect it up to WooCommerce and lets you push out mugs and T-shirts and other things that you've created the design for, right? And so when you get to talk to them, or Codable was there. Codable provides resources for creating and building, or maybe making a little tweak to your WooCommerce store. You start seeing these resources you don't normally see at another event, and that's fantastic. The dynamic also allows you, when you have that many people who are motivated and paying a much steeper price point than a WordCamp, you can bring in speakers who are able to provide another angle or insight that you wouldn't normally get in the regular WordPress community. So the last speaker of the last day not only delivered a fantastic talk, but in whatever arrangement he made with Woo Themes and Automatic, every attendee of the conference got his book, and it's a fantastic.
That's a good job, Chris. Way to set that up.
It was a.
No, just kidding.
It was a fantastic. It was a fantastic talk, and it was a fantastic book, and again, it highlighted that this event was at a different level.
Just to
Who was
clarify,
that? Who was that last speaker?
Chris wasn't talking about himself as a third person.
It's possible, but I don't think that's what was happening.
I don't think he was.
Moment. Who was the last speaker with the book and all that jazz?
So that was Andy Sernovitz.
Yeah.
Talks about word of mouth marketing.
Just go ahead and Google Sernovitz. Have fun with that. Google.
It will be in the show notes as usual.
Jason's on it. So was that, obviously that was one of your highlights, Chris, one of your favorite talks. What did you guys who spoke, what did you guys speak about?
I talked about WooCommerce at scale. Again, this particular conference, I had only 12 minutes. So in 12 minutes, you really try and hit one main point, not like tons. Which my main point was a point that was big enough to get a lot of people to say ooh and ah because they didn't expect it. But I was able to talk about defining the right metric for WooCommerce at scale, which my metric is add to carts per minute, which is unrelated to the ultimate cart or the ultimate revenue of the day. But add to carts per minute is a highly functional way to measure and compare apples to apples when it comes to scale. And then that we had been able in this last year with Crowd Favorite and WP Engine to get a store on Cyber Monday up to 2,000 add to carts per minute. Which is massive scale. So
yeah, not on GoDaddy shared hosting.
Not on anyone's shared hosting.
Sure. Not on any shared hosting there. Nope.
I will say, though, that I went during all these talks, and they were talking about the store, and I went and I load tested it by buying some makeup while I was sitting in the talk listening.
Good.
It worked great.
That's what we were looking for. I was hoping that we would sell a lot more lipstick than normal on a regular WooConf day.
Did my part.
Pretty funny, actually. You should have coupons.
So we talk about coupons. Like we talk about coupons as a function that doesn't always scale. But one of the things that was really fun about working on the project for my wife was that every time I did something really spectacular, they sent my wife makeup, and I'm like, this is not the way it's supposed to work. I'm supposed to get a new pair of headphones, and instead they're like, look at this super cool copper lippy, and you're like, oh, okay, right. So Melissa made out.
That's also a present for you. I just want you to know. That's not just for her.
Yeah, it's not all bad news over there.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, you know?
True.
Bob, you want to tell them about your talk?
It did involve lipstick because you should say that right up front. Don't make me wait.
I actually talked about building my online training business and site using WooCommerce. So it was more of we think of e-commerce as all products, and so I was kind of bringing in, it's also services too. So yeah, it was kind of that in a nutshell, just kind of going through the history of how I used WooCommerce to do that. So it was fun. Had 12 minutes too, so talked fast.
Were all the talks 12 minutes, or just is it kind of those are the lightning talks?
There was a couple keynotes, 2 or 3 keynotes.
There were four keynotes, beginning and end of each day, that were longer and critical. And then, of course, there were some training sessions that were not always on the main stage. And for those training sessions, they went in deeper, and again, those were longer. But for the main stage, to get the most speakers kind of moving through and the most topics, a lot of the talks in between the 2 big keynotes at the beginning and end were 12 minutes long. So some people did a great job with 12 minutes because they tried to stick to like one main point. Here's my takeaway in these 12 minutes, which is a little bit more like a TED Talk, which I think was their intention, right? Let's have a whole series of inspirational TED Talks that drive one main point home. And there were other people who were like, I have 45 minutes of material that I'm going to share with you in Rapid Spitfire over the next 12 minutes, and slides with 40 list items on it, and they're just going rattle, 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 and you're like, wow, someone needs an editor. But all in all, it was good.
Yeah, and I think I had a total of 8 slides. So yeah, it's I like the shorter sessions. I think they were a lot more concise, and I really enjoyed it.
I'm a post-status member, so I was very excited to hear that Brian Krogsgard was talking. Did you guys attend that talk? Did you learn anything great from him?
I loved Brian's talk. The way I would shape the way Brian Brian's message, right, was WooCommerce is the best we have, and there's still a lot of room for improvement. And it wasn't a negative talk. He was just talking about what he had done and gone through and learned with his post-status site. But there's issues and things, whether it's with PayPal and specifically which feature in PayPal you have to turn on to be able to get the subscriptions working the way you want them to, and be able to make changes, or there's components in WordPress or WooCommerce that interact with that. And so I think he was telling the true story in a way that was not a bash, but was a way to kind of elevate these are interesting problems that you two could dig into and help out with. So I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I got half of it, and then I got a text that my site had gone down. So, needless to say, I ran to the WP Engine booth. So that was where I spent the next hour.
That's an endorsement. So, what about you, Patrick? What'd you speak about? What'd you like?
So I talked a little bit about where e-commerce is going. I talked about Amazon and marketplaces and mobile commerce, and it's the first time I've ever talked over my session, like my allotted time, because it was just minutes. I probably talked like 13, but I really liked everything. One of the things I liked is I like one-track conferences, and we did that for most of the day, and then for like 2 hours in the afternoon, we did break it out into just store owner talks and just developer talks, so that way we were able to get some more technical stuff to the right people who needed it, but we didn't drown people in developer talks, and for the most part, we wanted to have speakers that were good enough that they could talk to all the audiences.
So it's more like conceptual, not as much practical, but more like theory and concepts to employ.
No, yeah. In the middle of the day, they broke it up for a track for store owners and a track for developers, and then it went much deeper. So, for example, I gave a generic talk on the main stage about WooCommerce at scale, and then one of the guys that I had worked with on that project, Patrick Garman, who works for our customer, gave a more in-depth talk and walked through, here's where coupons break down, here's how to think about gift cards, here's what we and CrowdFavorite worked on for some custom plugins to mitigate these specific features because these are inefficient queries, etc. So if you're a developer and you listen to Patrick Garman, you're like, that's fantastic. If you're a store owner and you just hear me from the stage, then you're like, I didn't know it could do that, I feel more confident, I should keep moving down this road. So it's different audiences with different messages.
I mean, my confidence in WooCommerce as a platform, it's scary to invest your whole business in a certain direction, and making that choice can be really intimidating because you're like, I'm going to put all my stuff in here and hope that this train keeps riding without being able to see the future. Yeah. But because Automatic purchased WooCommerce, I think that really stabilized that space, and I know that there was a lot of reasons that they did that, including wanting to be able to do more e-commerce on WordPress.com and that type of thing. But I think that it also provides some stability and confidence in consumer confidence for the e-commerce space, because I've used like all of the different plugins for that, and they've ebbed and flowed, and it can be really, you're just like, why would I do this if it's not going to be here? So I'm really glad that they were, that they did that.
I'm pretty sure by the time Automatic had purchased WooThemes that even though internally on the inside of the WordPress ecosystem we're looking at a lot of different players, but outside of that little huddle, pretty much everyone was pretty secure with stability, given that it was already 25+% of online stores ever. And,
but thinking that it's secure and being like, yeah, that seems like a good idea, that's the major player, and being on the inside and being like, even a company like WooThemes could get, bot, or, have internal problems or whatever happens to be, those are different things. So that's me speaking as a developer or as a, making recommendations to people and putting their whole livelihoods in this, because that's really what e-commerce comes down to. It's, it's not the same as just having a blog. That can be someone's livelihood. But e-commerce, when that breaks or if that goes down and if someone's invested all of their business in that, that can really impact their lives, their business. That can make or break someone. And so it's just a way more intense decision. And so this, to me, in the space, gave me that confidence that they're going to keep it going. And I'm really and that it'll be compliant also, and work in tandem with WordPress, so it's not going to go in some crazy direction and fork itself.
So I heard a number of people echo those exact things, that they felt more confident and after the acquisition, and it just makes it seem more stable. Working here, I felt stable the whole time, but from an outsider's perspective, I think that helps.
The good news is they announced WooCommerce has now reached 37% of all online stores. So that's massive.
It's pretty intense.
The challenge is still how it moves up market, because as you move to the larger stores, the bigger sites, it drops off rapidly, and I think that's part of our goal, part of my talk, part of what we've done at Crowd Favorite and what other agencies are doing similarly is trying to get that clarity and articulation to the rest of the non-community out there that WooCommerce actually can scale and do a good job. So we're excited for that.
37% is an impressive number. Where's the nearest competitor?
Magento's right around 8. No, Magento's at 8. I think that's the next biggest, and Shopify's at 4 or 6.
Yeah.
Or if you look at just CMS as a whole, and I just did some talks at a conference this weekend, not WooConf, but WordPress in general is like something like 56% of all CMS. This is like from August of last year, and comparing that with Squarespace, which gets a lot of like attention, but it has 0.7%. Like, that is the scale of difference that we're talking about. So
wait, 0.7, is that even 1%?
Not.
My math is hard.
In my pretty little pie graph, it's like the tiniest little sliver of pie you've ever seen.
But I think it's good to see that there are competitors in this space now, and that people are doing some pretty interesting things with this, especially seeing things like from Shopify now having a plugin that's now tied into WordPress, and seeing how that kind of gets all tied in. So it's very curious to see how the space changes and how that changes, both having SaaS-based products as well as stuff that's hosted on the server there.
I think that's brilliant of Shopify to connect with WordPress. They're just like, we see this market, we see this trend, let's not make people choose, let's let them do both. And in fact, this weekend I talked about that too, that if you have a Shopify site but you want to grow and expand, you can still keep that as like your engine and have WooCommerce, WooThemes, no, WordPress, there we go. It's all just running together. Have WordPress still be the engine of your site, not your e-commerce side. So I think that's brilliant of Shopify to not be quite as walled of a garden as the others are.
So what was the big takeaway for you guys that did attend and did get to either attended or spoke? Like, what was that big takeaway that you got that was like, oh, I really need to look at this a different way or step up my game a little bit? What do you think, Bob?
Probably was around my podcast. I hate to admit it, but it was the interest in the podcast and the interest I got from a lot of the vendors. So it's definitely upping. And I'll probably be going to a couple episodes a week here soon. So there's some good stuff, and just connecting with all the people too as well.
Is WooCommerce going to be starting? It's a joke that like Squarespace sponsors every podcast ever. I don't know if you guys are in on that joke. That's a thing.
I am.
So maybe WooCommerce or some of those vendors are being like, oh, if Squarespace is getting out on every podcast ever, maybe we should take on a few.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the vendors I talk to, that is where their budget is going to podcasts now. So a lot of them I actually have budget just for podcast sponsorships, and it was a lot of good conversation.
And not just podcasts, but also on YouTube, we see tons of stuff coming up on our YouTube channel where all the different competitors and such are advertising, as well as plugins and different things like that within WordPress. So very, very cool there.
I published an ebook with all the design from WP Engine that is on scaling WordPress, and I have a webinar coming up this week with WP Engine as we talk through the story. And so part of what I did while I was at the conference was to spend time over at the WP Engine booth and hand people the white paper and talk to them about the experience. Particularly around scaling and what to look for, and so those are two avenues that I've created, but also allow us to have more and more of that conversation about scale. So to me, that was the biggest takeaway, obviously because that was my topic and that's what I was spending time with, was the number of people that were asking. We had one company come up and they do fitness stuff, right? And they're just like, this is how big a scale we need to be able to hit, and you're like, this is awesome. I love having those conversations.
What about you, Michelle?
Yeah, so, I enjoyed all the stuff that was really talking about the future direction they're taking WooCommerce. Not only, the nerdy stuff, like about how they're going to address at scale and all that, but from a design perspective, it's really interesting looking at how they're addressing more and more automation and kind of the zero interface, like have e-commerce happen to you in ways where you're not always interacting with it, whether it's through subscriptions or predictions or all that stuff. And seeing it happen in the rest of the ecosystem, I'm kind of like an addict of Amazon. They like everyday Amazon. So like it's cool to see stuff like WooCommerce using those same kind of patterns of like having e-commerce unobtrusively woven throughout your life and like how WooCommerce can support that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Also creepy, but yes.
Well, yes, but I've embraced my robot overlords.
So I think for me, my favorite was one of the guys that I work with. He programmed a drone so that when someone placed an order, it like flew, like it knew where all the products were. Like it knew this product was like this many feet away in this direction, and it went over to where it was, and then it came back and delivered it to wherever the person was sitting.
Like at the conference.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It was on the stage. Yeah.
Oh, so it was like a mini version of Amazon. So that wasn't Jeff Bezos.
It was not. Jeff Bezos just came on stage for a minute. No.
And like flew a drone around. He's like, I could actually see that. That's not actually the biggest stretch. Although he's probably not a big fan of WooCommerce.
Oh.
So your favorite was the robot overlords as well. That's good to know about both of you. Duly noted.
Yeah, don't come over to our house.
With robot overlords. Check.
So are they going to be making any of this stuff available to purchase, watch later, anything like that? I know that they had the $6.99 ticket to watch it live, but what are they doing with the content after the fact? Do you guys know anything about that?
I don't think we're 100% set on that. I know. So let me tell you what we did this year. Is we released a lot of the content from last year as like we said, hey, here's if you want to see stuff like this, come to WooConf this year. I know we'll be releasing it somehow. I just don't know how yet.
Okay.
By drone is actually my guess. So you'll order it, and then it'll fly to your house and like drop a little USB. Yeah, exactly. It's like, dink, here you go.
I'll just say, if anyone was watching the live stream and happened to record the live stream, and you happen to catch my presentation that way, we can keep it on the down low and never tell anyone else. But if you can contact me, I would love to get a copy of that.
He's a pirate. There's pirates, and
they do. What I did hear from stage was that they plan to try and release the videos before the end of the month. So that's kind of awesome. We'll see how that plays out.
Very cool.
Cool. It's exciting. And there's next year it's happening again, right?
Should be happening again. Should most likely be in the U.S. Yeah, we'll see where it is.
In the U.S. This is wasn't that obvious? That's not obvious, I suppose.
There's already WooConf Europe already planned. Like
I wish. It's just that we seriously talked about it, but I think most of our user base is here in the U.S., so it makes the most sense to do it here.
Patrick, you have my full support for WooConf Jamaica. Okay, let's do this.
Okay, we'll do it.
Yeah, Jamaica's a big market.
How about Bora Bora?
Make everybody travel equally. You know what I mean?
Folks, that's about it for today. Make sure you go to our website at WPwatercooler.com. Click on the links there to subscribe. If you didn't get a chance to get any of the links that we talked about here, it'll all be in the show notes, so be sure to check those out. If you don't want to watch us and just want to listen to us, you can subscribe to us over at iTunes. Thank you very much, and you guys have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.